I'm going to preface this conversation by saying that the number one thing that I had to do before anything else in order to start addressing my physical health was getting sober. So in March of 2022, right after my 27th birthday, I quit drinking. And that was absolutely something that had to be done. For me, there is not a world in which it is possible that I would make the improvements in my physical health and mental health that I have made if I hadn't quit drinking. So by July of 2022, I had about 3 months or so of sobriety under my belt, and I had been feeling better. There were some improvements in my quality of life. Mainly my anxiety was greatly improved. That kind of goes without saying. If you know anything about quitting drinking and a lot of the negative effects that having a drinking problem has on your quality of life, obviously anxiety, morning after panic attacks. The main benefit, aside from all the reasons one needs to consider not drinking, my anxiety had improved a lot. That's just the tip of the iceberg of the benefits of sobriety. If you need to get sober, you need to get sober, and you know what I mean. But anyways, I hadn't seen the improvements in how I was feeling physically that I had kind of hoped alcohol was responsible for. My fibromyalgia had not improved. My IBS had not improved. I still had acid reflux. I was still experiencing headaches on a day-to-day basis, and my menstrual cycle wasn't where it should be. So by July, I had gotten to a point that I was stable enough in my sobriety, because early sobriety is not fun, not a good time. But I had gotten over the hump. I was ready to start making some more improvements to my health. And that included quitting smoking and vaping nicotine, because I hadn't given that up yet either. So I figured if I was going to overhaul my health, that was going to have to go. And so I decided to do it all at once. In one 3-day weekend that I had, I quit smoking and vaping. I quit eating carbs and I quit eating sugar all in one go. It was a very uncomfortable 3 days. Mostly I think because of the nicotine withdrawal. I had experienced nicotine withdrawal in the past and it always really sucked, but I had never ridden it out this long. Thank God I did. Do it. You can deal with 3 days of discomfort. You can do it. Quitting things is just all about your mindset. Whether you quit cold turkey or wean yourself off, at the end of the day, quitting is quitting. You're doing it in one moment and you're not doing it in the next. And then you're never doing it again. Quitting is quitting. That's just how I see it. So anyways, that was a fun weekend. I was stuck on the couch. I was not able to get off the couch for that entire 3 days. It was very uncomfortable. And I knew it would be, and that's why I did it all at once, because I had heard that there could be withdrawals from carbs and sugar as well. So I just figured I'd knock it all out in one go. And I did. And I was really proud of myself after that weekend, to be honest. I'm still proud of myself for doing that. It was crazy. Certain aspects of improving my life that have required me quitting bad habits, I have been the only one that believed in myself. And if you're dealing with something with some bad habits that you're thinking about quitting, just know it's not going to happen if you don't fully believe in your own ability to do it. You don't need, I feel like this is a hot take, but I don't think you need the support of other people. If you do quit a bad habit and you rely heavily on the support of other people, but you don't have that support within yourself, you're going to relapse. It's like I said in the introduction, healing comes from within because it has to. And if it doesn't, you're not going to be able to truly heal. I'm done with that tangent. The point of this video is the diet. So the carnivore diet completely overhauled my health. By this time, I had written down a list of all of my symptoms. I think it was probably it was over 30 line items. My intention with this list was actually to share it with a rheumatologist I had been hoping to get in with that I never did. As frustrating as that was at the time, I am now so grateful that that never did come to fruition for me, because I now know and believe that it would have been a huge waste of time and exorbitant amounts of money. I didn't have health insurance, still don't. I would have been paying out of pocket for a specialist, which I was willing to do. I was willing to pay their hourly and be possibly thousands of dollars worth of labs that they would have want to run so that I could get an autoimmunity diagnosis and be put on medications that I'd be told I would always need. Turns out I didn't need them. I don't need them. And the point of me sharing all of this is that I believe a lot of people who they are given to do not need them. Just through the change that I made to my diet, my IBS, my acid reflux, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, that was a huge one. They're all huge, but if you have fibro, you know. And my headaches all resolved almost immediately. I cannot emphasize enough the impact that nutrition, and specifically eating a meat-based diet, has had on my mental health. I have struggled immensely with my mental health my entire life, in and out of psych professionals' offices, on and off various psychoactive medications, only narrowly skirting commitment. So I know how trivializing it can feel to hear that something as seemingly surface level as what we're eating is responsible for our emotional state. In fact, several years ago, I was encouraged to explore the possibility that it was a leaky gut that was responsible for my emotional volatility, but I didn't want to hear it. Honestly, it felt invalidating, and I stopped seeing that therapist. At the time, I think I was maybe 20, and I was just looking for someone to help me understand the feelings behind the constant, uncontrollable meltdowns I'd been having. In the end, though, that therapist was right. But I would go on to spend years getting worse, both experiencing and causing chaos. I tend to have to learn everything the hard way. But I share this story in the hopes that it might help someone save valuable time in recovering their health and relationship to self and others. Here's a quote from Dr. Nicole LePera's book, How to Be the Love You Seek. This is the holistic psychologist on Instagram. I'm sure some of you follow her. She's amazing. Her content on Instagram is really good, so I bought her book. Early on, she talks about our hierarchy of needs and addressing our physical needs in order to be able to address our emotional needs. She says, "Do you know how you feel when you get really hungry or have a fever and don't have the capacity to deal with anything outside of your seemingly all-consuming physical needs? The same is true if we don't consistently eat nutrient-dense foods, don't sleep enough or sleep erratically, don't move enough or move too much, or routinely face more physical or emotional stress than our body can handle. These unmet physical needs may not manifest themselves as acute symptoms, but over time, the constant trickle of unmet needs can add up to chronic dysregulation." And these next few quotes address the idea that taking care of our physical bodies has to happen first, that there's a sequence we have to follow when we're trying to heal. Because we're all human, we all have the same basic universal needs, and we all have to meet these needs in the same order, addressing each sequentially. Why does the sequence of your healing journey matter so much? Because we can't truly heal our relationships and evolve as individual beings until our body feels both physically and emotionally safe. If you're chronically dehydrated, sleep deprived, malnourished, or have other unmet physical needs, you won't have the energy or ability to work on yourself or your relationships. So, to the points that she made and the point that I'm trying to make, finally learning how to fully nourish my body through the foods that I eat cleared up so much. Having an uninflamed physical body creates so much space, the space that you need to be able to begin to address the emotional body. On the carnivore diet, my emotional symptomology diminished almost entirely. No more brain fog. I was suddenly easily able to get out of bed in the mornings to take care of myself and my space. My mental stamina and motivation increased. I surprised myself with my performance at work and was able to earn the very savings that have allowed me to be able to move up here to Iowa and start following our homesteading dream. My anxiety lessened even more. My depression went away. Yes, my depression. The long-term, treatment-resistant, major, at times psychotic depression, plus PMDD, went away. I had also been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. But the shift in my mindset that clicked naturally after rejuvenating my body has completely rid me of the emotional turmoil that got me that diagnosis in the first place and plagued me throughout my teens and early 20s. I no longer think of myself as having any of these maladies. A miracle, frankly, because I used to frequently spiral from hopelessness, feeling like I would be mentally ill and progressively worsening for my entire life. Now, I have hope and excitement for the future, instead of being plagued by that fear and dread that I know a lot of us are familiar with. Now, when I experience symptoms, first of all, they are manageable and at an appropriate scale, whereas before I had no control over my emotions. They controlled me. Second of all, I have comfort in knowing that when I do experience negative feelings now, they are a reasonable reaction to external difficulties in life. They're a rational human response of which I can understand the cause, not some neurochemical misfiring that I can't explain, scaring myself as well as those around me. It's truly shocking to realize the amount of emotional distress dietary choices may be responsible for, and I understand any skepticism you might be feeling towards what I'm trying to say. But if you're struggling with your own mental health, I would strongly encourage you to look up the Carnivore Diet on YouTube and listen to the hundreds, if not thousands, of testimonials similar to mine, and even more impressive. And I'm definitely not even trying to push the carnivore diet on you. I was strict carnivore for 6 months, but I'm not a strict carnivore anymore, but I am still animal-based. I just am trying to convey the message that we should be more open to the idea that our dietary choices are affecting our mental health, and that maybe if we've been struggling for a long time and we haven't been able to find a solution, and we haven't tried making more conscious choices about what we're eating, or maybe even doing a more thorough elimination diet than we've ever tried before, we may find some relief in that. It's just been my experience that the carnivore diet is the ultimate elimination diet. Other elimination diets that doctors recommend are complicated and confusing and hard to remember, and include foods that you may be reacting to even if that diet says it's a safe food. Whereas when it comes to meat, it's pretty unlikely that your body is having a negative physical reaction to it. And I know that there's a lot of people that think that they don't digest meat well. One, that could be true because of unnaturally low stomach acid from not eating enough meat, but mainly it's because of the foods that we usually eat with meat, or the way that the meat's prepared, like it's cooked in rancid seed oils, usually served with bread or potatoes, something fried. So again, I'm not trying to push the carnivore diet on anyone. That's just what ended up working for me and has worked for an insane amount of people for their mental health and physical health. I'm just encouraging you to make conscious decisions around your food choices in the hopes and in the idea and in the belief in the connection between what we're putting in our bodies, what's in our guts, and what's going on in our brains, minds, and spirits. And just start asking more questions about our food systems and about what we're told about our food systems, especially from the plant-based side of things. Like, just look into who funds those documentaries on Netflix. Questions about our nutritional guidelines and recommendations. You'll realize pretty quickly that it's all lies. There's a bald eagle flying outside of my window. Badass. It's probably hungry. You'll quickly realize that conventional advice is actually seriously damaging to us collectively, because it's damaging all of our physical and mental states of health. Because a lot of us have grown up following those recommendations and respecting their authority. Look into the gut-brain connection, grain brain, leaky gut. There's a book called Metabolic Madness by Dr. Rachel Brown that I recommend. It's basically just a really good synopsis of all of the research that has been done on the connection between diet and mental health and gut health. Or you can just look up some podcasts or YouTube videos that she's been interviewed on Very enlightening stuff, very encouraging and hope-giving stuff. The idea that these debilitating mental illnesses that we hold the belief are uncurable and that we're going to struggle with for our entire lives can be addressed by healing our guts. I could create an endless list of recommendations, but those are some good jumping off points. I know the topic of diet can be triggering for a lot of us, especially if we have a history of eating disorders, which I can sympathize with. I've struggled with eating disorders and disordered eating for a long time as well, and I was definitely in that space when I was relatively recovered of not wanting to talk about food too much. Like, I remember when I started going to the chiropractor, he also did a lot of work around nutrition and wanted me to do a food log, and I refused to do it because I was still in the mindset that something like that would be too triggering. I understand if you're in that place where talking about diet feels like it's not really an option. I think the movement in our culture towards body positivity and intuitive eating stuff as well, for all the good that those things can do in just helping us not beat ourselves up so much, I think there are some pitfalls to it, including perhaps creating the mindset that it's actually healthier to not think about food and nutrition and some of the potentially negative health consequences of eating certain foods. I know that there are people in those spaces touting the idea that there's no such thing as good food and bad food, which I think is dangerous. And while I used to find comfort in those lines of thinking, I did not find physical well-being. I don't think of the way that I eat now, I don't think of it as being on a diet. It's a way of eating, and it's a lifestyle change. A sustainable one at that, because I have absolutely no problems adhering to it because of how good I feel on it and how incredibly satiating it is. If you are comfortable talking about diet and weight loss, it does bear mentioning that I have kept off 20 pounds of excess weight eating this way. Many people have used the carnivore diet for its weight loss benefits, in addition to all of the physical healing that it can provide. When I first started diving into the realm of all of the various ways of eating one can choose to address failing health, I did experience some apprehension and nervousness, I guess you could say, at the idea that I might be having food taken away from me, the pleasure and the joy that food brings taken away from me, because I was what you would call a foodie. I loved trying all kinds of different foods, going out to all of the new restaurants when I lived in Houston. There were so many foods that I thought that I was gonna miss so much. I did have the mindset of, well, life is so short, life is so hard. Food is one of the few joys and pleasures in life. Don't take it away from me. Same thing with drugs and alcohol. For a long time, I knew that I had a drinking problem and was using marijuana as a crutch, but I didn't want to imagine life without it, and I honestly didn't believe in my own ability to go through life without those things. I know that is how a lot of people feel about their drinking and their drugs. You know, don't make me stop drinking, don't make me stop smoking. It makes me feel better, it makes life easier and more enjoyable. I saw a post on a sobriety meme page that I follow conveying the idea of the thought we might have about our relationship with alcohol. What if I lose my spark? That's something that I know a lot of people think. It can sound very trite and cliche, but the fact of the matter is that joy and peace and happiness has to come from within. I'll say it again and again because it's just something I've found to be so true. We have to look for contentment somewhere deeper than just things that we can consume. And I know that may be easier said than done. We're conditioned to do exactly that. All of that is just conditioning. We're conditioned to live in a consumerist, capitalistic society. We're conditioned to believe that food and shopping and eating and drinking and smoking are the things that we're going to find the most joy in, that those things are what create the spark in life. Those things aren't enjoyable. We do get dopamine from all of those activities and have fun sometimes, but I'm speaking to those behaviors in excess, which can be hard to own up to exhibiting in ourselves. Really hard. The point of the story is this, what I've already said. Prioritizing the health of my body and my gut has made so much healing possible for me. And I shared so many personal details because I really want to get through to people who want to listen to my story and share hope and spread the idea that healing is possible. Nurturing a sense of safety in our physical bodies by feeding it nutrient-dense foods has been an important step in my healing journey.